Te reo rangi o te mānia. This episode was produced in Ōtautahi by Plains Media, with support from New Zealand On Air.
Today I have Keryn here from Brainwave Trust, and we are going to talk all things about rangatahi sleep, how much they need, what changes around this age, and how we as parents can support them through that.
Thanks for joining us for Being Real Parents with me, Anna, and my colleague and buddy,
Kate. We work in the parenting space.
And it's here where we'll talk about our worlds as parents, the good, the not so good, and the hilarious, and mix this with what we know about behaviour and psychology.
Kia ora, Keryn. So nice to have you here again with us.
Kia ora, Kate. It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's always such a delight to chat to you about things. It's always so knowledgeable. So I feel like everyone's probably quite familiar with you, obviously being on here a bit, but always nice to introduce you anyway in case we do have anyone listening that hasn't heard you speak before.
Thanks, Kate. I'm Keryn O'Neill. I'm the Knowledge Manager for Brainwave Trust Aotearoa, and we share information that supports the best possible outcomes for all our tamariki and rangatahi.
Yeah, amazing. And I know when we were talking about rangatahi sleep, you mentioned an article that has been published, and so that might be a useful tool for people to refer back to after the podcast too, hey?
Absolutely. There's a lot of articles on our website, www.brainwave.org.nz, and there's a couple of things about sleep. The main one is why sleep matters for rangatahi. So if people want to know more after we've chatted, then that would be the best place to start.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. And I know you've got loads of amazing articles on there that are so useful to refer back to. Cool. So sleep. I thought about this morning and I was like, oh gosh, sleep is something that I'm in the thick of it still with my 2-year-old getting some molars, and so I'm not getting much sleep myself. But obviously that's not what we're here to talk about today. Talking about our I guess older children, hey, not our super little ones. So how much sleep should they be getting, Keryn?
Well, the sort of consensus seems to be somewhere around 8 to 10 hours per night. And obviously there's individual differences in there. When we're talking about rangatahi, there's quite an age range in there as well. But
sure.
Somewhere in that 8 to 10 hours is considered to be what's needed to support all the development and well-being and health.
Yeah. And would you say like that most are getting that? Do we know? Like, is
sadly, it appears not.
Yeah.
Both in New Zealand and internationally, it seems that a lot of young people are getting like less than 7 hours sleep a night.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the amount of sleep is not the only issue. It's sort of the quality of sleep as well.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're not even sleeping for enough time, then it's going to be hard to get the sufficient quality in there as well. But we have a pretty significant proportion of young people who are getting less than what they need.
Yeah. That must flow onto so many areas of their life, hey, make it so tricky. Yeah.
Absolutely. And more so than it does, say, for you and I.
Yeah.
I think we all can recognise some of the downsides of not enough sleep.
Yeah.
But it has an even bigger impact at times of rapid development, and adolescence is one of those periods of development.
Yeah. And so there's some changes that kind of happen throughout that period of time, hey?
Yes, and I guess for context, it's important to note that there's an awful lot of changes in probably every area really, that our adolescents are going through. And when it comes to sleep, there's sort of what we call social changes that can influence what's happening. So typically perhaps more homework, maybe more extracurricular activities outside of school, maybe beginning part-time work, more independence from parents, perhaps greater use and independence around technology, and all of those can influence a young person's sleep. But we've also got biological changes happening at this time. So our sleep pressure, our drive to sleep, which means that the longer we're awake, the stronger our need to sleep is.
Yep.
That seems to get earlier and earlier for some of us. But for the people that we had to talk about, for our teens, that actually builds more slowly.
Right.
So that internal sort of pressure to want or need to sleep comes later than it did for them in childhood, and later than probably for their parents or other adults.
Yeah.
And a second thing that happens is the circadian rhythms change. That's our internal sort of biological clock, if you like, that influences our sleep and wakefulness cycles. And that can change, including the melatonin, which helps us to recognise that it's night and time to sleep, is produced quite a bit later in teens than it was when they were children, or than it will be when they come out the other side into adulthood.
Right.
So both of those things biologically are pushing our young people to want to go to bed and go to sleep later.
Yeah.
But life isn't always kind of set up to enable them to then get the required amount of sleep before they start the next day.
Yeah, that's a really tricky time, hey, like as if there's not enough kind of going on in that time as it is, to add that as well, and then know that you know, that affects so many parts of our life if we don't get enough sleep. That's huge, hey?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just thinking it's quite useful to know that there's all those changes that are going on and why we're seeing our teens potentially wanting to go to sleep later. Because I guess as parents, we could probably think there's other things going on, hey, like thinking about their social life and those sorts of things. So, yeah, really, it's really useful to know that there's actually some biological things happening at that time that are creating those changes. So I guess that leads on to, what we do with all of this, hey, and why it matters.
I mean, in a nutshell, it kind of matters for everything.
Yeah.
No pressure, parents. But, because of their development, it's, like I said, it affects young people. Insufficient or poor quality sleep affects our young people more than it does adults. There's an potential impact on mental health for young people who are not getting sufficient sleep. That relationship's complex, though, because whilst not enough sleep can have an adverse effect on a young person's mental health, equally those that are experiencing mental health difficulties such as anxiety or depression can in turn influence someone's ability to sleep well and sleep sufficiently. But it also can influence risk-taking, which is something that is on lots of people's radar for our young people. So those that haven't had sufficient sleep are more likely to engage in some of the negative sides of risk-taking, whether that's driving under the influence, not putting on their seatbelts, just taking sort of risks in that area. Sexual risk-taking can increase when there's not enough sleep, and so can use of alcohol and other substances tends to increase. I found it fascinating looking at the research and just how interconnected everything is.
Yeah.
And there are no silver bullets, but sleep is something that we can potentially influence for our young people that can have quite a protective effect on a lot of other aspects of their, behaviour, learning, well-being over that time.
Yeah, that's huge. Hey, it's really, really massive. You're listening to Being Real Parents on Plains Media, broadcasting on 96.9 FM, streaming live and available as a podcast on plains.org.nz. So, Keryn, that's it's a lot to digest, isn't it, around how much sleep affects so many parts of their well-being and their lives. What can we as parents be doing to support rangatahi to ensure they are getting enough sleep? What are some things we can do?
That's a good question. And I guess I should start by saying that, there's a lot of things that we can do as parents, but particularly as our teens are getting older and desiring more autonomy, that can be easier said than done.
For sure.
And some of those things relate directly to sort of sleep, and some things that can help relate to, say, like just the family environment and climate in general. So if you've got a largely warm, positive family environment, then that helps to set the scene for young people to feel able to go off to sleep.
Yeah,
quite
that makes
easily.
sense. Yeah.
And we can model good sleep practices ourselves.
Yeah.
In an ideal world.
Yeah. I laugh because it always comes back to modelling ourselves, doesn't it?
Modeling's pretty important, damn it.
Yeah.
But even if our young people can see that we're working on that, at different times been like, okay, I'm putting my phone outside of my bedroom. This is my bedtime routine that helps me unwind for sleep, and sometimes making those things visible for our young people can help. And then it's not just something that we're telling them to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Teens are pretty good at picking up on being asked to do one thing whilst the adults around them are doing something quite different.
Yeah, and I love how you're actually saying that out loud, hey, like this is what I'm doing, so that they pick up on that, because you might think you're doing those things, but maybe they're not noticing.
Or maybe they're not noticing why.
Either,
or the impact, Yeah. Since I stopped having coffee after lunch, that helped my sleep, or... Having physical activity is something that can be really helpful, but ideally not too close to bedtime. So kids that are more active, or young people during the day, that can help with sleep. I sort of mentioned caffeine in terms of the adults, but obviously for our young people, avoiding caffeine close to bed is also helpful, and tech use, and that. I fully appreciate that can be a bit of a tricky area for parents, but, there's a fair bit of research that points to, you being on our devices too close to when we're trying to go to bed and go to sleep is not helpful for any of us in terms of having a good sleep. Ideally, we'd probably also want those devices out of the bedroom. Relaxing routine before bed, and that could look different for different young people. And trying to use their bed only for sleep, so not as a place to study, not as a place to sit there scrolling on their phones or other things. If we sort of keep the bed for that, that tends to help.
Yeah, that is
and that's for all of us too, actually. So, that's something else that we can potentially model. And I think, whilst, as I mentioned, our teens are going to typically be wanting and needing greater autonomy, I think it's still important to recognise as parents that we can still influence those behaviours. And if parents listening have got children who aren't quite at that stage yet, then I think trying to set up some of those good habits, or if they've already got them, maintain them, try and hang on to them as long as possible. Or if there are things that on reflection could do with tweaking that might help the young person sleep, starting that sooner rather than later might be more successful.
Yeah, that's a nice way of thinking about that. Hey, I'm also thinking, while you're speaking, and, we've already talked about modelling, but it's quite good for ourselves too and our own well-being, hey, to get into some of these habits and then doing them alongside. That can be a nice connection time too, hey, like, so when you're talking about the physical activity, maybe it's a walk together or doing something they enjoy doing, shooting basketball hoops or whatever that looks like, but getting yourself out there and doing that alongside them too, hey, then you've got that connection time, but it's also great for ourselves as well. So wherever we can kind of, if it helps to think about that and our own well-being too, hey.
Yeah, definitely. And then that, as you say, that can provide other opportunities for connection, and it potentially then becomes sort of a positive thing rather than yet another thing that mum or dad or whoever are asking the young person to do.
Get out there and go for a walk sort of thing. Hey?
Yeah. While you're sitting in front of TV drinking your caffeinated beverage on your phone. Might not work so well.
Totally hear you. Yeah. Nice to kind of create those traditions of things that you do together, and like you say, the earlier you can do them, then it sounds like the better, hey? Yeah, and holding on to them for as long as possible.
Yeah.
So, Keryn, I'm thinking about some of the things that come up for myself that I hear from parents around teens and sleeping. And, one of those common things we often hear is them sleeping in lots in the weekends. So like we've discussed, they're kind of going to bed later, and then in the weekends that sometimes allows them to sleep in a little bit longer if they don't have something they have to get up and do the next day. Also, in the morning. I'm just thinking, what does that look like around letting them sleep in? Sometimes we don't see them until lunchtime, all those sorts of things. I remember doing that myself. Just thinking about that and how we would manage or support them throughout those times too.
Yeah, that's a good point. One of the interesting things from the research is that I totally get it. It's, obviously often highly desired by the young person that sleep in.
Yeah.
Perhaps not so much by the adults around them, but the research kind of refers to this term social jet lag that can happen where teens are sleeping in a lot on the weekend to sort of catch up on the sleep that they haven't had during the week. And it can feel a bit like it feels when people are travelling across different time zones. It can be harder to then adjust. And it can actually then disrupt their circadian rhythms. So by having that big sleep in on, say, Saturday and potentially Sunday, that can then make it harder for them to fall asleep again on Sunday night and then get up at the, whatever time for school or study or work on the Monday morning. So it's a tricky one. Because there can be some, difficulties that arise from that, sleeping in for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's, better if the young person can get adequate sleep on a more regular basis across the week rather than not enough sort of Monday to Friday and then trying to cram it all into
catch up.
Saturday and Sunday. Now, that's easy for me to say. Much more difficult as I've experienced myself. When my daughters were younger. So it's not like a stick for parents to beat themselves with, but I think it's just good to be aware that if things can be set up so that the young person can be getting, pretty much the sleep they need over the week rather than needing mountains of sleep during the day on the weekend, it's probably going to set them up better, both for their sleep habits and then all the things, their health and well-being that sleep can then impact.
Yeah, that makes sense. So kind of trying to keep to those routines. This actually sounds quite dreamy to me at the moment because I'm still much in that phase of having little ones wake me up. At, 6 a.m.
Until lunchtime, would you?
I'm like, that sounds quite nice to have a little bit of a peaceful morning, But yeah, I can imagine, when we're trying to do things as a whānau together as well. And, we're having that hassle of trying to just get someone out of bed. That must be really challenging. So what I'm hearing is we're trying our best to keep to those routines, hey? And I guess like anything, we're validating that for our teens too, that, it can be tricky and that we understand. And maybe educating them around some of this stuff too, hey?
Absolutely, and that's where I think starting a bit earlier may be more successful.
Yeah.
They may be more receptive at a younger age than in the thick of it.
Yes, yeah.
Every young person and every whānau is different, so people need to find what kind of works for them.
Yeah. Great to be mindful of it, and if you are in the thick of it, just kind of going gently, I guess, hey?
It's, like any area, we're, doing the best that we can with what we know, but, perfection is not possible or required.
Yeah.
So, but having sleep on the radar is something that is important, that it doesn't sort of fall off with all the other many demands on both the young person and the adults that are supporting them.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. So, Keryn, is there anything else that we need to be mindful of when we're talking about teens and sleep?
Sure. One thing that we haven't talked about yet is that those young people who have experienced adversity or gone through some traumatic experiences may have increased difficulty sleeping enough, sleeping well, and which can increase the disadvantages and challenges that they face. So if we're aware of that in terms of some of our young people, perhaps they're paying even more attention to the supports that they might need, well, actually both to address whatever has occurred for them, but also supports to help them get sufficient sleep. Will help them, as they progress.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess if we're noticing that it's actually a real struggle for some of our young people, thinking about maybe what else they have experienced, hey, and how that might actually be affecting that time, that makes a lot of sense. All right, so for our top tips today around rangatahi and sleep, what are we thinking, Keryn?
Well, I think it's helpful to just bear in mind that there are so many things changing for our young people that influence their sleep, because understanding where that's coming from can help us, including the biological changes that are driving our young ones to want to stay up later. Just understanding that, I think, is a good place to start. Secondly, as we talked about a bit before, trying to model good practices around sleep and sleep hygiene ourselves, and from as early as possible. But if that hasn't been something that's kind of been a feature, it's never too late to make those changes, both for our own sake but also for supporting our young people. We're wanting them to make some changes. And finally, I think if parents become concerned about the young person with regards to sleep, then I'd suggest that, they reach out potentially to their GP, who may be aware of supports or things in their local area that could help if a young person was requiring some extra support in that area.
Yeah, nice. So that's such a good little reminder, Keryn. Thank you. And people can always reach out to us at Real Parents too, and we might be able to support finding the best avenue there too. Oh, thank you so much, Keryn. It's been so lovely to chat with you.
Thank you, Kate. It's always great to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for being with us today.
We hope you've learned that while parenting is challenging sometimes, that's totally normal. It's been fun having you with us. Keep being amazing.